The house was completely silent. No TV. No music. No scrolling phones. Just 12 people in a small Manila home, sitting together in the dark, and choosing not to speak. I'd been in the Philippines for 4 days. I came as a skeptic. As an atheist. As someone who'd spent years building a very clean, very rational wall between himself and anything that smelled like religion. I thought I knew exactly what I'd find here. Ancient rituals dressed up as truth. Comfortable mythology for people who hadn't read enough to know better. A week of theater I'd observe from a polite distance and then write about with the practiced detachment of someone who had nothing at stake. But standing in that doorway, watching an 80-year-old woman mouth silent prayers by candlelight while her grandchildren sat perfectly still around her, something cracked open inside me that I wasn't prepared for. And I still can't fully explain what it was. But I'm going to try. Let's get started. I'm 34 years old. I grew up in the Midwest. My parents took me to church until I was about 12, at which point I read a book, asked some questions nobody could answer, and slowly stopped going. By my mid-20s I'd settled into something I'd call comfortable atheism. Not the angry kind. I wasn't out there debating people online or handing out pamphlets. Just quiet disbelief. A private conviction that the universe was indifferent, that meaning was something you made rather than something you found, and that organized religion was mostly a coping mechanism that humanity would gradually evolve past. Smug? Maybe. A little. I'm being honest. I'd traveled plenty. I'd visited temples in Kyoto, mosques in Istanbul, cathedrals in Rome. I admired the architecture. I read the plaques. I took the photos. And then I left, completely unmoved, quietly proud of my unmovability. So when a trip to the Philippines lined up with Holy Week, the most intensely observed religious event in one of the most Catholic countries on earth, I thought, perfect. Good content. Interesting visuals. Something different. I didn't know it yet. But by Thursday night, I wouldn't recognize myself. I landed in Manila on a Monday in late March. The moment I stepped out of the airport, the heat hit me like a wall. Thick, close, relentless. The kind of heat that makes you feel like the city itself is pressing in on you. Manila in Holy Week is not a city at rest. It's a city that has chosen, deliberately, to be somewhere else entirely. Giant wooden crosses lined the highways. Procession routes were chalked onto the asphalt in white letters. Vendors sold purple candles and framed images of saints from folding tables on every corner. Churches, and there are a lot of churches, were overflowing, their crowds spilling out onto the sidewalks, people kneeling on concrete without complaint. I'd done my research. I knew about the flagellants, men who walk barefoot through the streets flogging their own backs as a form of penance. I knew about the crucifixions in Pampanga, volunteers who allow themselves to be nailed to crosses each year in a ritual that the Vatican has never officially endorsed but has also never managed to stop. I was ready to be fascinated in the way an anthropologist is fascinated. From the outside. A local contact had arranged for me to stay with a family in Quezon City. 3 generations under one roof. A grandmother named Lola Caring, who didn't speak much English, but communicated everything she needed to through the particular precision of her eyebrows. Her daughter and son-in-law. Their 4 children ranging from a 7-year-old boy who immediately tried to show me a card trick to a 22-year-old engineering student who spoke better English than I do. And a rotating cast of cousins, aunts, and neighbors who passed through the house at all hours like the place was a train station with better food. When I arrived, Lola Caring looked at me for a long moment without speaking. Then she said something in Tagalog. Her granddaughter translated, "She says you look tired. She says you eat too little." I'd been in the country for 4 hours. She wasn't wrong about either thing. They fed me. Immediately. Abundantly. With the particular Filipino hospitality that doesn't ask if you're hungry, it simply assumes you are and acts accordingly. And sitting at that table, eating food I couldn't name with people I'd just met, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel for at least a few more days. Welcome. Not tolerated. Not accommodated. Welcome. I didn't know yet that this feeling, this warmth I was receiving without having done anything to deserve it, was going to be the first thing that dismantled me. Tuesday evening, I heard it for the first time. I was sitting in the sala scrolling through my camera roll, already mentally composing the narration I'd write about this place, when it began. Lo! A single voice from somewhere in the back of the house. Then a second voice joined. Then a third. The payon. If you've never heard it, I'm not sure I can do it justice. It's an ancient Filipino chant, a sung retelling of the life and suffering of Christ that dates back to the 16th century, brought by Spanish missionaries and then transformed into something entirely Filipino over the centuries. Some families chant it for hours. Some observe it through the entire night, rotating singers in shifts like a kind of sacred relay. The melody is slow, cyclical. It doesn't build toward anything, it just continues, like breathing, like waves, like something that has no particular interest in ending. And here's the part one didn't expect. I put down my phone. I stood at the edge of the sala and watched the family gather. The cousins I'd met at dinner filed in quietly. The engineering student closed her laptop. The 7-year-old, who had been running in circles around the yard 10 minutes ago, came and sat cross-legged on the floor without being asked. Lola Caring sat in the center. Her eyes were closed. Her lips barely moved, but the sound that came from her was full and round and carried something I didn't have a word for. Experience, maybe. Wait. Decades of singing the same words in the same season until the words had worn grooves into her. And here is the thing that broke through my armor first. The phones were gone. Every single one. No Instagram. No TikTok. No group chats. No news alerts bleeding in from the outside world. Just voices and candles, and the particular gravity of people choosing, together, to be present. Sat down on the floor next to the 7-year-old, who glanced at me and scooted slightly to make room. Not because I believed, but because the alternative, standing there in the doorway like a critic at a performance, notepad in hand, at a careful distance from everything, suddenly felt like the most disrespectful thing I could do. Not to them, to myself. So I sat and I listened. The chant went on for 2 hours. I understood none of the words. It didn't matter. What I noticed, really noticed, in my body rather than my mind, was this. The silence between the verses wasn't empty. It was full. Full of something I hadn't felt in years. The absence of urgency. The absence of the constant, grinding, invisible pressure of being a modern person online. Wednesday morning, they put me to work. No one asked if I wanted to help. Lola Caring simply handed me a broom, smiled in a way that contained exactly zero ambiguity, and pointed at the floor. So I swept. The whole house was being cleaned, not because it was dirty, but because this is what you do. This is what has always been done. The home must be prepared as the body prepares for something significant. It must be made right. Made ready. Others were in the kitchen. A large pot of something I couldn't identify was already on the stove. Women were washing and folding linens that had been washed and folded the same way the year before, and the year before that. The engineering student was polishing what turned out to be a small wooden statue of the Virgin Mary that the family had owned for 3 generations, the paint worn away on the places that hands had touched it most. Nobody talked much. They didn't need to. There was a choreography to it. A quiet understanding. Everyone knew their part, not because anyone had assigned parts, but because they'd watched this happen enough times that their bodies knew what to do without being told. I thought about my own family, about how the last time we were all in the same room together, someone had started an argument about something political before the food even hit the table. About how family gatherings in my world are events to be survived, full of competing agendas and old wounds and the particular exhaustion of people who love each other but can't quite figure out how to be in the same room. These people weren't arguing about anything. They were just together. Purposefully together. Cleaning a house that was already clean. Cooking food they'd cook every year regardless of whether anyone was particularly hungry. Doing things that meant something because they'd always meant something, and because the doing itself, not the result, was the point. There's a concept in philosophy called practical wisdom, the idea that some things can only be understood by doing them, not thinking about them. I'd read about it. I'd nodded along. Standing in that sala with a broom, I started to feel it. When's the last time you did something that mattered just because it was time to do it again? That afternoon, we walked the neighborhood stations of the cross.
Look at the
No
colors
live
on these
stream.
houses.
No hashtag. Just 14 stops and an old
This alley
woman's
hasn't
swollen
changed a
feet
bit.
on hot
It's
pavement.
always been like
Handmade
this.
wooden markers mounted to walls and telephone poles. At each station, the family paused, a few words were spoken, and
Yes,
then we
just around
moved
the
on.
corner.
I watched Lola caring at each stop. She was small, maybe 4'10", maybe 80 years old. She moved slowly on feet that were clearly swollen and probably hurt constantly. But at every station, she paused, bowed her head, and her lips moved in a prayer that I couldn't hear. At the 11th station, Jesus is nailed to the cross. She stayed longer than at the others. Her eyes were wet. I don't know what she was praying about. But watching her face, the particular quality of her expression, which was not sadness exactly, but something more complicated, something that held grief and gratitude at the same time, I understood something I'd missed my entire adult life. Ritual isn't about belief. It's about having somewhere to put the things that are too heavy to carry alone. She had a lot of those things. I could see it. Decades of them. And this slow walk through familiar streets, these same prayers said every year at the same wooden markers, was where she put them down. Every year. And then picked herself back up. I've thought about that moment more than any other moment from that week. I think about it still.
Let us
Thursday,
give thanks for this meal
Maundy
and for
Thursday.
being together.
The family
Amen.
announced
Looks
we were doing the
wonderful.
Visita
Please,
Iglesia.
everyone eat.
For those who don't know, it's a tradition where you visit 7 churches in one night, stopping at each one to pray. It can take hours. It often runs past midnight. The streets during Visita Iglesia in Manila are not the streets of a city going about its business. They are the streets of something much older, moving at a pace the modern world has largely forgotten. I almost said no. I'd been pushed further in 3 days than I'd expected to be pushed. The payon had gotten to me. The cleaning had gotten to me. The grandmother's face at the 11th station had gotten to me. And part of me, the part that had spent 15 years building a very precise identity around not being the kind of person who gets gotten to by this stuff, was starting to panic. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about dismantling your own defenses. It doesn't feel like freedom. Not at first. It feels like loss. I almost made an excuse. I almost said I was tired. I almost retreated back to that last corner of myself that was still holding out, still insisting this was all beautiful but not real, meaningful but not true, affecting but ultimately just a very elaborate coping mechanism for a very uncertain world. And then the 15-year-old, whose name was Isabel, and who had the particular confidence of someone who has been the smartest person in every room she's ever been in and knows it, looked at me across the dinner table and said, in perfect, casual English, "You don't have to pray. You can just walk with us." Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Like the only question had ever been whether I'd choose to show up. So I walked. Manila at midnight during Holy Week is unlike anything I've experienced anywhere in the world. I've been to Times Square on New Year's Eve. I've been to Shibuya Crossing at rush hour. I've been to Carnival in Rio. I know what it looks like when a city loses its mind with joy. This was the opposite of that. Thousands of people moving through the streets. Not in chaos, in quiet, rhythmic procession. Families with children. Old men in barren Tagalog. Young women with candles. A city that runs 24 hours a day choosing, together, to slow to almost nothing. Choosing something older than electricity, older than modernity, older than whatever version of themselves they'd been for the rest of the year. I walked behind Lola caring. She moved like she'd done this 100 times. Because she had. She knew the route. She knew which cobblestones to watch for, which corners to take, how long the wait at each church would be. At the second church, she stopped outside the door and looked back at me. She said something in Tagalog. Isabel translated, "She says the door is always open." At the third church, I waited outside. I still felt like a fraud going in. Like wearing a costume that didn't belong to me. At the fourth church, I stopped outside the entrance. The family filed in ahead of me. I stood in the doorway. Through the open door, I could see the inside. Stone. Candles. Hundreds of people in complete, voluntary silence. The priest's voice low and steady, like the payon, like something that had no beginning and no particular intention of ending. And something inside me, some last, stubborn, carefully constructed wall, was shaking. I stood in that doorway for a long time. Then I made a decision. I walked in. The church was old. Centuries old, maybe. The air smelled like candles and stone and something else that I couldn't name. Something that was either very holy or very ancient or both, or maybe those are the same thing. I found a pew near the back. I sat down. The family was up ahead, heads bowed. Lola Caring's lips were moving again. The priest was speaking in Filipino. I understood none of it. And yet, there was something in that room that I hadn't felt in years. Something I'd been too busy and too skeptical and too armored to notice I was missing. Not God. I want to be clear about that. I didn't find God in that church on Maundy Thursday in Manila. But I found something I hadn't realized I'd lost. Stillness. Not the stillness of emptiness, not the flat line of a mind that has given up. The other kind. The active kind. The kind that only arrives when you stop performing. When you stop rehearsing your opinions and defending your positions and monitoring how you appear to the invisible audience you've been playing to since you were old enough to be self-conscious. The kind of stillness that only comes when you stop trying to be right. I sat in that church for 45 minutes. The priest finished. Another priest began. People came in and went out. Candles were lit. Prayers were said in a language I didn't speak. I didn't pray. I didn't cry. I didn't have any kind of cinematic, light from above conversion moment that would make for a cleaner story. I just sat a day. And for the first time in years, maybe the first time since I was a child, that was enough. Being nowhere else. Wanting nothing else. Sitting in a pew in a city I'd only known for 4 days, next to people I'd only known for 3, in a building built to hold the grief and gratitude of a community, and feeling, somehow, that I belonged there too. Not because I believed what they believed, but because I was human. And this, community, presence, silence chosen together, is a human thing, not a religious one. When the family finally filed out, Lola Caring stopped at my pew. She looked at me for a long moment. The kind of look that doesn't need a translator. Then she patted my hand twice. Very gently. Like she was confirming something she'd suspected. She probably knew before I did. Good Friday. The house was at its most quiet. No cooking smells yet. Just light through curtains and the sound of a city that was, for one day, genuinely pausing. In the afternoon, the Black Nazarene procession came through the neighborhood. The Black Nazarene is a centuries-old dark-wood statue of Jesus carrying the cross, brought to the Philippines by an Augustinian friar in the 1600s, and now one of the most venerated religious images in Asia. Millions of people participate in its January procession in Manila each year. But smaller processions happen throughout Holy Week in neighborhoods across the country. I stood at the side of the road and watched it pass. People pressed forward to touch the statue, or the ropes attached to it, or the feet of those who carried it. Some of them were barefoot. The asphalt must have been close to burning. They didn't flinch. The man standing next to me was weeping openly. Not quietly. Not politely. Weeping the way you weep when you've stopped caring who sees. Nobody around him reacted. Nobody stepped away or stared or offered him a tissue with that look that means please compose yourself. He was simply allowed to grieve. In public. Without apology. In the middle of a street in broad daylight. I thought about the last time I'd cried. I genuinely couldn't remember. I'd been carrying things for years. All of us do. Losses we'd moved on from without actually processing. Griefs we'd intellectualized into manageability. Pain we'd archived neatly rather than felt cleanly. And here was a man on a sidewalk in Manila who hadn't done that. Who had somewhere to put it. I thought about what I'd said to myself for years, that I didn't need religion because I could process things through reason, through therapy, through the various secular substitutes that modern life makes available. And maybe that's true. Maybe it works. I left Manila early Saturday morning. Lola Caring was already awake when I came downstairs. She'd made breakfast. She watched me eat with the satisfaction of someone who considers feeding people a form of prayer. At the door, she pressed something small into my hand. A wooden rosary. Old. The beads worn smooth. She said something to me in Tagalog. I didn't wait for a translation. I didn't need one. I said, "Thank you." She nodded once. Like that was enough. I don't know what to do with the rosary, theologically speaking. I'm still not religious. I still don't believe in the doctrines that give it meaning for her. But I've kept it on my desk. And every time I reach for my phone out of habit, out of that reflexive need to fill silence with content, I see it, and I pause. That's probably the most honest thing I can tell you about what happened to me. Here is what I came home with. Not faith. Not conversion. Not a new set of metaphysical beliefs. I came home with the understanding that community and ritual are not religious inventions. They are human ones. That the modern secular world didn't replace these things. It optimized them away, slowly, in the name of efficiency and individualism and the frictionless life, and we've been confused about why we're so lonely ever since. That shared presence is not a luxury. It is a need. And pretending otherwise is a quiet kind of poverty. Somewhere in a small house in Quezon City, a family has figured something out that most of the modern world is still desperately searching for. How to be fully, completely, unapologetically present with each other. How to sit in silence without reaching for something to fill it. How to grieve in public without shame. How to clean a house as an act of love. How to hand a broom to a stranger and make them feel, somehow, like they belong. How to walk slowly through a city at midnight and feel, against all modern instinct, like you are exactly where you are supposed to be. I came to Manila as a skeptic. I left as something I don't have a word for yet. Softer, maybe. Less certain of my certainty. More willing to sit still and find out what's there when I stop running from it. That silence I saw on the very first night, 12 people in the dark, choosing not to speak, I finally understood it. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of something most of us have forgotten how to make room for. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's always been the point. If this story got to you, whether you believe, whether you don't, whether you're somewhere in the complicated middle, drop a comment. Tell me, when was the last time you were fully present somewhere? No phone. No performance. Just you, actually there. And if you know someone who's been armored for too long, send this to them. They don't have to believe in anything. They just have to be willing to walk through the door. I'll see you in the next one.